we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code @night to get 5% off your order. Hi, and welcome to the deck profile that you're about to be shown. This was recorded on a concurrent episode of Nexus at Night that I then took out and put in its own video just for your own convenience. As a result, some of it is going to be sloppy, some of it is going to be skipping over cards, but as always, I will have the deck log code in the description for you to go look at. The important thing is that for both my list and for Root Beer's list, whichever one you're watching at this particular time, it did fairly well at Springfest San Gabriel with my list going X1 and Root Beer's going X3. Our team ended up going X2, but if you want to learn more about that, you can watch the full podcast episode in the link below. Thanks.
So yes, I was on Nova Grappler. Extreme! So I'm playing Victor. We have 4 copies of the V Victor on play. You look at your top 7, grab a grade 2 or less Extreme Battler, call it, shuffle. And on attack, you can Counterblast, Soul Blast, choose up to one of your rear guards, stand it, and then if that stood 2 or more times by a card's ability, including this one, then you can get Drive +1. And then we have 2 copies of Zubat on Stride. You can draw a card, call a card from hand, and then get one of your units Vanguard or Rear Guard once per turn on attack, stand something, and then at the end of your turn, if you have 1 or less cards face up in damage, counter charge, and if you have 1 or less in soul charge. I never once rode into Zubat Battler. I'm pretty sure it was always Stride fodder.
I realize that that's the case most of the time. Like, when are you ever going to go, all right, now it's time? Go into Zubat. Like,
you go first, get the Excel marker, and then you go into Zubat afterwards, because it's another restand that you could use for, like, Bustard or, like, any of your strides, really.
Okay.
But yeah, like, Zubat has value. Also, it's just another Victor name, but, like,
right. Okay,
it has its values if you can already set up an Excel circle, but that kind of requires you finding everything in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
This was a last-minute call. 1 copy of Kick Typhoon. I don't think this really came up, but when placed on Van or on an additional rearguard circle, you give something 5k. And then on attack, if all of the rearguard circles in your front row have rear guards, you can counterblast 1, stand something. So this was just like an executive decision. Most decks play Ninja'd because it's an Extreme Battler, but I'm just like, that card sucks and is GB locked. So I made the executive decision to play 1 copy of Kick Typhoon instead.
Mano said, no.
Yeah. 1 cool Hank, so on hit, on Vanguard Circle, you can Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and then on attack, discard a card from your hand, stand something.
Pretty cool.
This card didn't come up very much, and the one time it did, it kind of screwed me.
Oof.
Why? Because you lose the card for it, or?
Because of the discard, yeah. I may have forgotten that favorite champ Victor needs to discard 4 cards for its full effect.
That's the kicker.
Yeah, so I have 2 different versions of the card, but 4 copies of Golsachi. So, on attack, if you have, or continuous, if you have a Victor Vanguard, it gets resist and an auto effect that counterblast 1. On attack, you can stand something, and then once per turn, GB2, when it stands due to the effect of your card, you get plus 7k. And then we have Dose Ledge, which I don't think I drew for most games. This is becoming a pattern. When it stands by a card's ability, perform all of the effects according to how many times it stands. So, first time it gets 10k, second time you soul charge, third time it gets another 10k, and the Sentinel Restrict. I didn't draw this card very much. I really wish I had. I had a lot.
There was one game where I saw it in your hand as the battle phase started. I was like, "What are you doing?" And then couldn't say anything.
If I had it in my hand, I either drew it off of something, or it was a drive check, or my board was just already full.
It was probably that.
Yeah.
But
4 copies of Sazanda, so when you ride it, you can look at your top 5, call it grade 2 or less Extreme Battler. I rode this surprisingly often. And then when your other unit stands by a card ability, if it's on an additional rearguard circle, that stood unit gets 5k, and this unit gets 5k. So this card is very good for getting you just a whole bunch of power. You have Arashid, the grade 3 searcher, so has that effect. And then if you stood something by card ability, it gets 5k, so it can be a 13k attacker or 13k boost. I think the one time, I think like the one time it came up, I did have to use it as an attacker. 4 copies of Ganbarugan, not by choice, but because I didn't have 4 copies of Jirohawk to play. So on attack, if you have a Victor Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, stand something, and this unit gets 5k, so it becomes a 13k attacker. I'm playing 1 copy of the old Arashid, just as like a stride fodder, and, you know, maybe I want to search out Victor. 2 copies of Gunzon, so it gives everything resist, and then if it stands, you can give it 4k for each face-up card in the G-Zone. This one did come up against one Vanquisher deck that I played. I used it both times to just give my board resist, because screw MP Dragon.
And Bulwark.
Yeah.
2 Jirohawk. I was running around day 1 asking people, do you guys have Jirohawk? That's the paradox of like useful rares and commons. No one's gonna carry them with them.
Correct.
To an event, but like you need them, and none of the vendors I talked to had it either. So it was I was so annoyed. I was like,
Yeah.
I really wanted to have a 3rd copy of this. I would have swapped the 3rd copy of Ganbarugan for it. I ran into a lot of situations where, like, I had... Actually, no, that's not true. I ran into a lot of situations where my front row was nothing but Golsachi, so I didn't have a good restand target.
Oof. How did you manage?
because he wasn't drawing his dose ledge, which is unfortunate.
I would ask Victor to hit better units.
Yeah, like, I don't know what happened. I just, like, never found Dose Ledge. And then triggers. 1 of the Brant Gate draw trigger, because I wanted 4 draws. 3 Sentinel crits, Sanctitude. 4 of the Stride crit, 2 of the Soul crit. 1 Energy Girl, because I did not have the Extreme Battler stand trigger, and I did not want to order the Extreme Battler stand trigger, because there was, like, no... When I was buying everything else I needed, like, none of the vendors I was getting from had it, so I'm like, there's no guarantee I'm going to get this Extreme Battler stand in time, so I'm just going to play Energy Girl, because I have it already.
Alright.
It came up once, because, you know, only 1 copy.
Hey, that's more than you drew your dose ledges. Barber's Law. Yeah.
True. So yeah, for the G-Zone, I play 1 copy of this. You never go into this. But this
It's a
is
flip
like,
target.
Yeah, it's a flip target, so like, when something stands by a card ability, you can counterblast 1, discard 2, stand this unit, and then if it's your main phase, attack your opponent's Vanguard with it. And then at the end of the battle it attacks, it gets drive -1 until end of turn. So, there's never been a situation where I looked at this card and thought, yes, this is the correct choice. Pretty much would always be my go-to flip target, because I was pretty confident I was never using it. 1 Meteor Kaiser Stiff Need, god that name. So on play, you can Soul Blast 1 or Counter Blast 1 or more. It gets 5k for each face down card in your damage zone. And then if you paid Counter Blast 2 or more for the cost, you draw 1. And if you paid 3 or more, you draw again. This came up surprisingly often.
Yeah.
Like, I used it like 2-3 times across 6 games.
Yeah,
So I used it quite a lot, actually.
I remember, like, because I borrowed your deck a couple times just to futz around with, and, like, I kind of wish there was a 2nd copy in here.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
card's good.
Yeah, the card is surprisingly useful. 2 favorite Champ Victor, 1 of them is Flip Fodder, but there are occasionally situations where it comes up. I used this against the Vanquisher player that I played against, and then, you know, forgot about the part where I need to discard 3 for him to restand himself.
Oof.
So I was looking at my, like, horrible board and just like... So, you know, that was fun.
Simply hit
yeah.
the draw trigger.
Yeah, just hit the draw trigger, you know, skill. 3 Dogon Titan, so... The first effect, where if you have fewer rearguards than your opponent, rarely ever comes up. The big thing is that you can use it as flip fodder, because the soul ability to Soul Blast 1 and turn it back down to counter charge. which I did not realize until like halfway through the day of like, oh, right, because Bustard is going to flip like a million cards, so this would be what I flip up in case I need to countercharge later.
Yeah, or flip it with your this thing or whatever.
Yeah, Gundreed, so this is the flip G guard. So when it's placed on guard circle, you can pay the cost. If you do, your Vanguard gets red text. An attack that does not hit, you countercharge. I never went into this.
Really?
Never.
That seems like spammable if like they swing with a low attack rear guard first, and you're like,
Nothing
okay, I dodge.
Nothing that I fought against had low power rear guards. That was
Force, though.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Is like everything that I needed a G guard for was big. That's why this came up so many times.
I see.
Because like it was the only way for me to get more defensive value.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then 2 of the Uncanny Dragon King. Why is this so small? Bushiroad, fix your art.
Yeah.
But on attack, if you can see this text for ants, Counterblast 1, turn something from G-Zone face up, stand your whole front row, or stand your front row rear guards, and this gets 5k for everything that stood, so usually 15.
It's very, very simple and very effective.
I went into this a couple of times because I just ran into situations where, like, I had nothing but Golsachis in my front row, and I was looking at that like, alright, Bustard probably isn't correct right now because I don't have enough soul, or I just don't want to for whatever reason, so I go into this. Like, my list of priorities so far is Bustard, who is this man.
Also for ants. Yeah.
Yeah, also text for ants. When your rear guard stands, you can Soul Blast, turn something in your G-Zone face up, and it gets a drive. And then at the end of the battle of attacks, if it has 5 or more drives, you can discard 3, stand it, and it gets drive -5. So Bustard is plan A. If you have any kind of optimal board where you can stand like 3, at least twice, ideally like 3 or more, then Bustard is just gonna get like 7 drive checks, attack, restand, attack for 2 more drives. At least one game was just won entirely off the back of Bustard being Bustard. Actually, 2 games. And then 1 copy of Junior. I honestly wish I had a second one. It would have come up real handy against the Dimension Police player I played against. But this one is, if you have nothing in your damage zone, you flip up 2, it gets 5k, and then if you have nothing in your soul, you soul charge 2, it gets another 5k. So this is like resource gain and shield value kind of wrapped into one. And then 2 copies of Winning Champ. So this one's like Soul Blast, flip something up. When something stands, you can give itself and the thing that stood 5k, and then GB3 at the end of battle attacks, draw a card, retire something with the lowest power on the field. Or retire your opponent's card with the lowest power. So this is for dealing with Honolly exactly, which came up once. Also, trying to resolve Winning Champ alongside Sazanda is the biggest pain in the ass. Because I'm just like, alright, +5/+5, Soul Blast, flip up, +5/+5. Oh, also it was Golsachi, because it's always Golsachi, so also +7 from his own ability.